But I'll get on to introducing the next speaker, which actually to do with the human interpretation and what people think about all of this and related topics. It came up briefly with Michael Gove earlier. But Kelly Beaver is the CEO of Ipsos, Ipsos MORI, of course, the polling company, and delighted to welcome Kelly now.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. So I thought it was 10, but in my 9 minutes, and the timer is on, I'm going to share with you some new data that we've collected alongside Andrew and his team actually, which looks at generational attitudes to longevity. Who thinks they're going to live to 100? Who wants to live to 100? What do we think it'll be like when we get there? And how do our attitudes change based on our generational cohort? So that's what I plan to cover. But first, I thought it was worth asking a little bit about people's overall view of longevity. And so last month, in the matter of weeks ago, we asked a representative sample of 1,000 Britons whether or not they thought that they would live to 100. Can I ask you now just to give me a quick guess on what proportion of the population in Great Britain thought that they would live to 100? Anybody want to shout out a rough estimate? 50%, 20%, 40%. Well, you're 10. You're closer, actually. Well done. So we have 14% of Britons actually think that they would live to 100. But that's not the most significant number on this slide. The most significant number is what it was like in 2019, because we polled the exact same question back in 2019 as part of our global trends work. And actually it was as high as 1 in 5 Britons who thought they would live to 100 then. And what you're seeing partly is the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, but also the numbers that we find attitudinally echo some of the harder measures on life expectancy that we've seen over the same time period. But of course, that question was really hard, so I don't judge you if you said 50%. I do judge you. I do judge you. It's very, very tricky to estimate. And so what I want to do is zoom out a little bit. And this is some of the work again from 2019, because that study was international. And we can have a look here at an international perspective. And you see that actually in those countries where the life expectancy is lower, they actually are worse at estimating life expectancy. So where's the UK? Well, we're somewhere in the middle here alongside some of the other European nations like Belgium, Germany, etc. But look over here, where actually we have China, Brazil and Indonesia, which are some of the countries with the lowest life expectancy. But in all three, over half the population actually believe that they're going to live to 100. Now that speaks a lot to the fact that there is quite a lot of optimism in those emerging markets and developing nations, and you see that written large on this chart. The other thing I want to pick out actually is Japan. So this is the country with the highest life expectancy and also the largest number of people over the age of 100 today. They're the least optimistic. Despite having a life expectancy close to 90, actually just 1 in 10 ish, 9%, think that they're going to reach that 100-year milestone, though they are probably the most accurate. So let's look at Britain in 2022, and this is data, as I say, we just published today. It's out, and you can have a look at it on our website. But despite this drop in optimism, actually we're still overestimating our chances. We are almost twice as likely to believe that we will live to 100 as the actual real numbers suggest. And we look at this and break it down by generations. And we take the midpoint of each generational cohort. So firstly, Gen Z, midpoint is age 18, whose life expectancy is about 86 for a male and 89 for a female. 26% of them expect to live to 100. And in reality, 1 in 10 men and 14% of females will live to 100. For millennials, midpoint is 34, expectation 16%, you'll start to see a trend here, and the likelihood for a man is 6% and for women 1 in 10. Gen X, so this is the generation midpoint is just around halfway, so 49, age 49. 12% of them think that they will reach the age of 100. And we really start to see it dwindle now, so 5% of men roughly and 7.5% females. And then our baby boomer generation almost 2/3 of the way there. Sorry, 67, I think, is the average age in the baby boomer generation. 8% is the expectation, and it's 1 in 50 is the chance for a man, and for females, around 5%. So you see there is a difference. That's the key point on that chart. And actually, our younger generations are the most optimistic about living a long life. And when we look at this, you remember my first number, the 14%, the overall? Just have a look at how that varies by generation. That's the decline over time in people's expectations. But despite this broader optimism about longevity amongst the younger cohorts, let's have a look at what people want. So there's a real gap here in what people think, where they think they'll live to 100, and whether they want to live to 100. Over a third of people overall want to live to the age of 100. And there's a real unmet need here. Part of this unmet need might be tied in with concern about what it might be like to be 100 years old. And this is one of the questions, again, we've covered and put out publicly today. So you can see that 17% of people overall say that they think that when they reach 100, they will have a good quality of life. In fact, look, even amongst those younger generations where they are optimistic about living to 100, still half believe that they would have a poor quality of life. And look at the one at the far end, our baby boomer generation, the ones that are closest to the actual age, and they are very pessimistic about the quality of life that they will have. But it wouldn't be an Ipsos MORI presentation without a little bit of optimism at the end and a few bar charts in the middle. So there is hope for progress, and our last speaker touched on this a little bit. Technology. And this is something where all the generations are actually very aligned. 7 in 10 think technology has an important role to play in improving the experience of old age. And as I say, this is the same across all of the generational cohorts. And when we ask people to go even further forward, we do see a degree of optimism that young people today will have a better experience of old age than their older counterparts today. And this isn't common across other data. We have a saying at Ipsos, and a lot of our data actually talks about loss of the future. People think their children will be worse off than their own generation was. But here we see something quite different, where people are more optimistic about better off when they reach the age of 100. So it's the same again with Generation Z. Thank you.